Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to take the articles and the research you send us and really pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge.
hmm
And today we got a stack of source material that, it fundamentally questions the boundary between the mind and the body. We're talking about the sheer, shocking power of belief.
It's true. For this deep dive, we pulled some pretty extreme case files and research. We're looking at the placebo and, nocebo effects.
Right.
And the core mystery we're exploring is this. Can your expectation, just your expectation alone, cause physical symptoms? Can it alter your brain chemistry?
Can it literally mean the difference between life and death?
Exactly. We're looking at evidence that suggests thought is a powerful and measurable biological tool.
That is our mission today. We need to move beyond just saying, mindset matters. We want to understand how belief creates an objective, measurable, physiological change in the body.
And sometimes with terrifying results.
Absolutely. Our journey starts in the shadows, looking at the ultimate negative expectation. Cases where the mind proved fatal. Okay, let's unpack this.
To begin, we look at the deeply tragic case of a man named Sam Lond. He was a retired shoe salesman in St. Louis in the early 1970s.
Oh.
Now, Lond was already struggling. He was grieving the death of his first wife, and then he gets this diagnosis, metastatic esophageal cancer.
Which back then, that was a death sentence.
An absolute death sentence.
Mhm.
He has surgery, but shortly after, a scan shows the cancer has spread, and it's aggressive. It's throughout the entire left lobe of his liver.
So his doctors basically confirmed the worst.
They tell him he has a few months left. He moves to Nashville, and his new internist, Dr. Metter, learns that Lond's one goal, his only goal, was just to live long enough to see Christmas.
Wow.
He does achieve that, but only just barely.
Yeah.
Exactly 1 week after Christmas, on New Year's Day, Lond is rushed back to the hospital. He's gravely weak.
And he dies.
He dies within 24 hours. Now, the medical staff, they noted a mild fever and some pneumonia, but his blood tests were otherwise pretty normal. They just assumed the cancer had finally overwhelmed him.
But the autopsy told a completely different story.
A chilling story. The medical examiner discovered that the esophageal cancer, it was gone.
Gone.
Gone. And the liver cancer, it was just a tiny, tiny nodule
Yeah.
and a small spot on his lung. Crucially, neither was anywhere near large enough to be fatal.
So wait a minute. The initial scan.
The initial liver scan from the St. Louis hospital had been a false positive.
So Sam Lund didn't die of cancer.
He didn't die of cancer. He didn't die of mild pneumonia. The sources suggest he died because everyone, his doctors, his wife, and most importantly, Lund himself, was utterly convinced he was dying. His mind literally manufactured the conditions to shut his system down.
That's heavy. The idea that a man died purely because of an expectation, that destructive power, the nocebo effect, it can show up just as powerfully even if it's not terminal. Right.
Exactly. We see this in the case of Fred Mason.
Right.
He's a 26-year-old graduate student in a clinical trial for an antidepressant.
Okay.
So one night, he's distraught after a huge fight with his ex-girlfriend, and he impulsively swallows all 29 remaining pills in his trial bottle. An apparent suicide attempt.
He gets to the ER and the symptoms are what, immediate?
Immediate and severe. He was pale, sweating, his pulse was racing at 140, his blood pressure had just plummeted to 80/40.
Well, the doctors are treating him for a massive, life-threatening overdose.
They worked to stabilize him for 4 hours, waiting for the clinical trial researcher to arrive and check the code on the bottle. And the result the researcher gave them was stunning.
He was on the placebo.
He was on the placebo. The pills contained no active drugs whatsoever, just sugar.
And the reversal of his symptoms.
It was almost instantaneous. The moment Mason was told the truth, his body just stabilized.
His blood pressure and pulse went back to normal.
Right back to normal. The drowsiness vanished, as the report says, as if by magic. His body had fully manifested the toxic effects of a massive drug overdose until the belief in the drug's power was broken.
Wow. So his mind drove his heart rate, his blood pressure.
All based purely on what he believed the drug would do. The expectation of toxicity became the toxicity itself.
Okay, so if the mind can trigger that kind of profound self-sabotage, can we weaponize that same power for healing? Let's flip this and look at the placebo.
Yes, let's turn to Jana Schoenfeld, a 46-year-old interior designer who had struggled with severe clinical depression, even suicidal thoughts, for decades.
And she enrolls in a trial in 1997 for a new antidepressant.
That's right, venlafaxine. And she has enormous hope. Shortly after starting, she begins feeling dramatically better, real relief. And crucially, she also experienced nausea.
a known side effect of the actual drug.
Exactly. So it completely convinced her she was on the real medication.
But she wasn't.
At the end of the 8-week study, the researchers told her she was in the placebo group, sugar pills.
I mean, she must have been astonished.
She was, but the real surprise was in the objective evidence they collected.
Right, because they looked at patients like her who actually got better on the placebo, which was what, like 38% of the group?
It was. And the EEG recordings show that these patients didn't just think they were better, they had a significant increase in activity in their prefrontal cortex.
Which is the part of the brain that's usually underactive in depressed patients.
Exactly. Her psychological shift didn't just change her mood, it physically rewired her brain to function like a non-depressed person's. The mind created a measurable, objective change in the brain itself.
No drugs involved. That is astonishing. But this effect isn't just limited to brain chemistry, is it? We have cases where this kind of conviction influenced, life-threatening illnesses.
Absolutely. Look at the famous 1957 case of a Mr. Wright. He had advanced lymphoma, tumors the size of oranges. Conventional treatment was failing.
It was terminal.
He was. But he became fixated on an experimental drug called crebiozin, which was extracted from horse blood. He begged his doctor, Dr. West, until he finally gave in and gave him an injection on a Friday.
And the response was miraculous.
That's the word they used. By Monday, his tumors had, quote, melted like snowballs on a hot stove. He was deemed cured, went home in 10 days.
Incredible. But then what happened?
2 months later, he reads all these media reports saying that crebiozin was, a dud, useless.
And his tumors came back?
Immediately, he was back in the hospital, completely hopeless.
So Dr. West, he suspected what was really going on here.
He did, and he performed a pretty audacious experiment. He told Wright the relapse was because of a bad initial batch, and that he was about to get a super-refined double-strength version.
But he didn't inject him with the drug.
He injected him with nothing but distilled water.
And the tumors vanished again.
They vanished again. He cured his aggressive cancer for a second time, purely through his own conviction.
You have to pause there. Dr. West effectively performed a double deception on a dying man. The results are compelling, but you have to acknowledge the ethical line he just blew past.
Oh, absolutely. It's ethically very murky. But the outcome, the sheer speed of the transformation, he changed his entire state of being twice in just a matter of days.
By just changing his belief.
Right. He triggered a massive anti-cancer biochemical response.
But the story ends tragically.
It does. When the American Medical Association officially announced that crebiozin was worthless, it was just mineral oil, and an amino acid Wright relapsed one final time.
He lost all hope.
And he died 2 days later. The belief that had saved him twice was just irrevocably broken.
That really highlights something critical. The power of this expectation, it goes beyond pills. It's about the conviction in the entire medical ritual.
It is. And that can extend to invasive procedures too, like we see in the sham surgery studies.
We're talking about documented trials where just the belief in the procedure produced results equal to or even better than the real thing.
The most famous example is from an orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Bruce Moseley.
Right, with the knee surgery.
Yes. He took men with severe osteoarthritis of the knee and split them into 3 groups. One got debridement, a scraping, one got lavage, a rinsing, and the third group.
They got sham surgery.
Sham surgery. They were put under, given incisions and stitches, but nothing was actually done inside the knee.
And the results were stark. The pretend surgery group did just as well as the real ones.
Just as well. Equal mobility, equal pain reduction, not just immediately after, but incredibly. 6 years later, they were still reporting the same level of comfort and function.
So that suggests the ritual of medicine, the white coat, the operating room, the incision itself. That's where the healing power lies.
In many cases, yes. And this was actually seen decades earlier in heart surgery trials.
The ones in the late 1950s.
Exactly. They compared the standard artery tying surgery for angina with a sham surgery. They'd make the incision, expose the arteries, and just sew the patient back up without tying anything.
And the outcome was shocking. 67% of the real surgery patients felt less pain.
But an even higher number, an astonishing 83% of the sham surgery patients felt less pain.
The placebo worked better.
The belief in the procedure was objectively superior to the actual intervention.
Okay, so if the expectation around a single event, like a pill or a surgery, is that powerful, what does this look like over the long term? Does just having a general positive mindset affect, say, how long you live?
The answer is absolutely yes.
Uh-huh.
And the data here is very robust. You look at the Mayo Clinic studies, a 30-year follow-up optimist were consistently physically and mentally healthier, and they lived significantly longer.
And there was a Yale study that found something even more remarkable.
Yes, that a positive attitude toward the idea of aging itself added 7 years to longevity.
7 years.
7 years. That specific mindset had a greater measurable influence on lifespan than things we obsess over, like blood pressure, cholesterol, smoking, or even exercise.
So what's the mechanism? Is it just reduced stress?
That's likely a huge part of it. Reduced chronic stress and inflammation. A Duke study on heart health showed patients with routinely positive emotions had a 20% greater chance of survival 11 years later.
And the opposite is true.
The opposite is definitely true. Hostile medical students had a 5 times greater incidence of coronary heart disease later in life.
So managing your internal state, your default attitude, could be as effective as diet and exercise for heart health.
Or potentially even more so.
Yeah.
But let's look at the absolute peak of this, the internal pharmacy effect.
We're talking about Parkinson's disease.
A severe neurological disorder. It's caused by the loss of dopamine-producing neurons. Researchers in British Columbia got a group of Parkinson's patients and told them they'd receive a revolutionary new drug,
But they were given a saline placebo injection.
salt water. And half of the patients showed significantly better motor control.
And this wasn't just them feeling better, it was biochemically real.
It was. Brain scans revealed that the responders were manufacturing up to 200% more dopamine in their brains.
200%.
The body essentially commanded the brain to self-medicate. To get that same effect with a drug, you'd need to give them a full dose of a powerful stimulant, like an amphetamine.
So the body manufactured exactly what it needed, simply based on the expectation of getting better.
Which really raises a huge question for neuroscience. What is the precise mechanism, the pathway, by which a thought alone can command the brain to produce a powerful drug like dopamine?
On the negative side, we see this play out all the time in clinical settings, right? Like chemotherapy.
Oh, absolutely. Anti-cancer drugs are famous for causing severe nausea.
And you get what's called anticipatory nausea.
It affects almost a third of chemo patients. 11% vomit before they even get the drugs. Sometimes just walking into the hospital is enough to trigger it.
And studies found that the expectation itself was the strongest predictor.
It was. 40% of patients who were told they would get sick developed nausea before the drugs were even administered. And none of the patients who didn't expect to get sick did.
Their thoughts were triggering a full-body physiological response.
Predicting toxicity even when no toxic substance was present.
Let's go to the absolute extreme edge of this now, where the medical world meets pure cultural belief. I'm thinking of that incredible 1938 story of Vance Vanders.
Right. In rural Tennessee, he was convinced he was going to die after a local voodoo priest put a hex on him.
And he started wasting away.
He lost over 50 pounds, refused to eat, he was near death. But all the medical tests were completely negative.
So the doctor, Dr. Doherty, he realized the problem wasn't physical, it was a crisis of belief.
It was, so he devised this theatrical cure. He told Vanders the curse involved lizard eggs hatching in his stomach.
That's creative.
Very. He gave Vanders a strong vomiting drug, and just as he heaved, the doctor secretly dropped a live green lizard into the basin. Look, Vance, the voodoo curse is lifted.
And it worked.
Instantly, Vanders fell into a deep sleep, woke up hungry, and recovered completely. Lived for at least 10 more years.
Which makes you ask, does the modern doctor in a white coat with a prescription pad hold the same fundamental power of conviction as the voodoo priest?
It's the same principle. In both cases, the ritual, the authority, and the absolute conviction delivered the cure. Whether it's a doctor, a priest, or even those cases of hysterical strength, a teenager lifting a tractor to save her father.
The body responds when those internal mental limits are completely suspended?
We've taken a journey from the tragic case of Sam Lund, who died from a misdiagnosis, to Janice Schoenfeld, who cured her depression by literally changing her brainwave patterns with a sugar pill.
We've seen a man cure his cancer twice with distilled water, and Parkinson's patients command their bodies to release massive doses of dopamine.
Right. And the core takeaway here is that expectation doesn't just make you feel better or worse. It creates measurable, objective physiological changes in your body. It alters your brain chemistry.
The mind can perfectly mimic powerful drugs and override even terminal conditions.
What does this all mean?
If a man can shed the identity of a cancer patient or a person with Parkinson's and physically walk into health just by altering his internal state through belief and expectation, Could it be possible that the same rock-solid belief that empowers snake handlers and firewalkers is what determines the bounds of our own everyday health, independent of our genetic circumstances? Something to mull over until the next deep dive.